There's another. Oh, brilliant. Welcome. You here to stargaze too? Brilliant. Welcome. There's hot chocolate in the hill house there if you want to help yourself. It's really good for hanging out and just keeping your fingers warm. Sorry, did I turn the light off on you while you were coming up the hill there?
Yeah, it's alright. I was coming up the back way in the dark, back there.
Oh no.
It's a little more uphill than
Yeah, I'm sure. That's the Cuban Hill, so I'm sure. But yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're waiting for it to get a little bit darker right now. I like to start by handing out these little red squeeze lights. We use red light because it's the longest wavelength, the lowest amount of energy. So it'll preserve your night vision. Your night vision is important for astronomy because the more your eyes dilate, the better you'll be able to see. Especially once we start looking at the really dim stuff. It takes you about 20 minutes to gain your night vision fully, and you lose it instantly looking at white light. So I recommend you have your phone on you, just take a moment to turn down the brightness on the phone. More I'd recommend just keep it in your pocket as much as possible. If you do have to check a quick text or anything like that, just be aware of the people around you. Like I said, it takes you about 20 minutes to gain your night vision fully, and you lose it instantly looking at white light. So if you're checking a quick text and somebody unsuspecting walks up behind you, just like their night vision, you're going to lose a friend instantly and take you 20 minutes to win them back. There's 3 levels of twilight. There's when the sun sets to when the sun's 5 degrees below the horizon. That's called civil twilight. That's probably when you were like driving over here. It's like the sun's technically set, but it's still bright enough to see and do anything you would during the day. And then there's when the sun's between 5 and 10 degrees below the horizon. That's called nautical twilight. Same story for ships at sea. That's when they're turning on their headlights and switching to radios and radar for nighttime navigation. Then what we're really waiting for, I'd say right now is about nautical twilight. What we're really waiting for is the sun to be a good 20 degrees below the horizon. That's called astronomical twilight. And that's when the stars really come out. This gives us plenty of time to adjust our eyes to the night. So, welcome everyone. My name's Luke. I'm from Denver originally. Studied astrophysics at CU. After I graduated, I did some research astronomy, and research astronomy is great. We're dealing with stuff out of this world, learning new things about the universe, but it's all done on a computer these days. Long ago are the days when astronomers actually get to physically look through telescopes like this. And I wasn't too keen on working with a computer all day. I ended up taking a year off from that job. I got a work visa in Australia. My plan wasn't really to work that much with that visa. I mostly wanted to get around the continent and see the country. But I ended up finding my favorite job ever. I started working for this bloke who goes by the name of Space Gandalf. He's Australian public television personality. He has a little show where he teaches the Aussies what to look for in the night sky, and he really does look like a Space Gandalf, like you'd imagine, with the big bushy white beard and Tim Gallon Australian hat. He takes folk out to the bush and shows them the stars in his giant telescopes. Absolutely loved it. It was my favorite job ever. So once my visa expired, I had to come back to America. I looked all over for a similar job. Couldn't find anyone else doing this in the States, so I figured I'd make a go of it myself. And that was about 7 years ago now. So thank you all for coming out and supporting me, following my dreams here. Where's everybody else from? Oh, I already asked.
Well, we're Wisconsin.
I'm Denver area.
Oh, perfect.
I'm from Golden State Park.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I love it out there.
Yes.
I have a friend that lives out there. She's an artist, Emily Keel. She's, you do leave out of Boulder for it, but it's one of the back roads. I want to say like Gold Hill or so, but it's up in there a ways. The other way from Netherland, I think more towards Golden Gate and Blackhawkers. So,
Marlins fan.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is our city house for sure.
Brilliant. Well, yeah. Uh, Welcome. I really like finding out where people are from because where you are on the planet changes a lot about what you see in the sky. That's the main thing I like to talk about, main thing I want to tell you all about. But before I just go blathering on everything I like to talk about, I want to remind you this is a 2 hour long tour. I'm trying to fit the entire universe into this time frame. So I'm definitely going to fall a little short here. But it's a live tour, so please keep asking questions, keep steering it whatever direction you want. Is there anything right out the gate, or people more interested in like the science of the stars, or the folklore of the constellations, or the planets, or the zodiac, or anything in particular here?
All the above.
Oh yeah.
Just all of it, the entire universe that I can get to.
The science of the stars.
Brilliant.
Universe.
Well then, I guess I better get to it. So I like to start with a couple reminders. Reminder number 1, the Earth is round. So far so good. Just checking, making sure everybody's still awake. Yeah, right. I do have. Well, I do these programs for the Girl Scouts and like youth groups, and I did have one little girl on the Girl Scout tour correct me and say it's actually an oblate spheroid, which she was definitely earning her patch for that answer. Just means it's a little flat at the poles, a little bulging at the equator. I've also had people pile on, like saying, "Look, we're in the mountains. There's like lakes and oceans. It's not like a perfectly smooth round ball here." But I think if I kept splitting hairs like that, or saying words like oblate spheroid, we'd be here all night and everyone would tune out except for that little Girl Scout that did her homework. So, for our purposes tonight, the Earth's round is reminder number 1. Reminder number 2: this round Earth is spinning on its axis once a day. So I call these reminders because it's not like it's new, mind-blowing information right out the gate here. It's something that everybody knows. You can file it away in the back of your mind as something you definitely know. But I feel like because we live indoors and work indoors so much these days, we don't really get to see this happen. We don't really get to be a part of this journey. If I were to ask you right now, would anybody know what direction the Earth's turning? What direction the Earth's taking us on this journey as it spins?
Like clockwise or counterclockwise or what?
So clockwise or counterclockwise is a good way of thinking about it, but you need an extra frame of reference. So a good way to show this is just spin your finger like around one of these stars above your head clockwise, and then like while it's still spinning, it sounds complicated, but just see how I'm doing it. Bring it down to chest level, and then when you look down on it, you'll see when you look down, it's looking like it's going counterclockwise. So I have a couple of hints here. My big hint is the sun sets in the west and rises in the east, so it's definitely a good hint here. It's a 50-50 shot now. I'm definitely fishing for one of those two directions. I also love this hint because sunset, sunrise, those words are over 400 years old. And 400 years ago, people are getting burnt at the stake for talking about this kind of movement. It wasn't well understood that when the sun goes down or the sun comes up, it's not actually the sun that's moving at all. It's the Earth turning away from the part of the sky the sun is in that makes it appear that the sun's going down. Which is definitely a way more long-winded way of explaining this. Way more romantic to call it a sunset, but I feel like if we could update that, those words, everybody would be onto it right away. Just as you were, I think you're doing the right hand symbol. Is that going to the east?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, right now we're all doing about 800 miles per hour to the east over there. So yeah, I think Golden Gate is just probably as the crow flies. It's somewhere between like 4 and 5 miles due east of here.
It's not far.
I reckon it's just over
Just
Rollins
over the
Pass.
divide,
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes me an hour and a half to get here though.
Yep. Yeah. Unless you have.
Like, just go right here.
Yep. Yeah. Do they have Rollins Pass open, or is that?
That comes and goes.
Yeah.
There's some hiking. You can hike across there.
Yeah.
And they had four-wheel drive
Yeah.
roads through there. I don't remember if they do now or something new opened.
Yeah. Right. Well, either way, if it's about, let's just say it's 4, because that makes the math a little bit easier for me. If it's 4 miles due east, that means once every 18 seconds, we occupy the space that Golden Gate was in 18 seconds ago. So be there way quicker if you could just freeze our place in space and let the Earth turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it would be quicker getting here than you'd take basically all day to get back. But yeah, so yeah, I kind of start with these because it's not like new mind-blowing information right out the gate here, but I feel like it could be or it should be. Like right now, we're all going 800 miles per hour to the east. If you're not dizzy and feeling it already, that's all right. That's the main thing I want to show you tonight, how I plan to do that. So we're going to take some measurements right now at the top of the tour, and then just check back in on them at the end of the tour. So a good way to measure anything in the sky is hold your hand out at a forearm's length distance. See how many handprints or fingerprints you can fit between the horizon and some of these stars. So out west here, we have that bright star we started off looking at. Everyone see the pointer? Yeah, I'm Luke Skywalker with this thing. This is a star called Arcturus. If I wanted to go off the top of the peak there, it's about one surfer hang loose hand symbol held at a forearm's stretch. Fits between that star and the top of the mountain there. That should be good enough for the east. Actually, to find Arcturus, we don't have the vessel of the Big Dipper, but we have these three stars which are the handle of the Big Dipper. So they say arc to us. So you follow the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper, and it arcs to Arcturus. So that's the best way to find Arcturus there. Directly above our head, we have Vega, this really bright star here. We have three stars that Vega's with. This is called the Summer Triangle. It's been a seasonal indicator for centuries here in the northern hemisphere. When you see this triangle rising in the east, you know it's summertime. But now it's like directly above our heads, so we know you can see it's rather than rising, it's switching over to falling or setting. And here we are on the cusp of September, and it's almost fall. You can see the Summer Triangle is almost transitioning from rising to falling itself as a seasonal indicator. Each one of these stars, this is Vega, Deneb, and Altair. Each one of these stars is in their own constellation. Altair is in Quill of the Eagle. Vega here is in Lyra. It's like this little, I think it looks like a little fish shape, but apparently it's a musical instrument called a lyra. And then Deneb here is the tail of Cygnus the Swan, which is probably my favorite of all of them. This is the tail of the swan. This is the belly button of the swan. Have a long neck that goes to the beak of the swan. Long neck back to the belly button here. We have a wingtip here, a matching wingtip here. Sometimes it's just called the Northern Cross, so this is the major axis of the cross. This is the minor axis of the cross. Yeah, that was a good one. So shooting stars or falling stars, more correctly called meteors. They're usually little bits. Meteors usually no bigger than the size of a grain of sand. They're really small. They're hitting the upper atmosphere at such high velocities. That's how they make such a bright show in our upper atmospheres. They're hitting the upper atmosphere at such a high velocity that it strips the electrons off the air molecules in the upper atmosphere. So it's kind of electrifying the air. So I usually don't get as lucky to see them because I'm usually messing with the telescopes, but I can always tell when somebody's caught one because you can't help but to light up when you see the shooting stars. But yeah, I think, did I mention that Cygnus was the Northern Cross? So this is the major axis of the cross. This is the minor axis of the cross. This Summer Triangle is also pointing to this little keystone shape here. This is the keystone of Hercules. It's kind of the most iconic part of Hercules. Like we say Ursa Major is the Big Dipper, which now you can see a couple more stars of it. The keystone is kind of what's most iconic about Hercules. Keystone's actually Hercules' body. He has a leg here, arm here, and arm here. Then going down from it, it's in a little bit of cloud, so I'll point it out later. This one's called the Corona Borealis, or the Northern Crown. That's one to watch out for, because they say in September one of those stars is going to go supernova, so it's going to go cloud so you can take a mental snapshot of how bright those stars are. Hopefully, when you see that go off, you'll be able to see how much it's changed. So yeah, the best way to measure anything directly above your head, like the triangle or the keystone or even just Vega there, is just look up at it and see how much your neck hurts. And I apologize because it hurts more when you laugh, but that'll be good enough for directly above our head. Let's see. Out east here, we have just a few faint stars coming, and I know that's going to hurt your neck the most to see. I'll just really quickly, if you want some stars over here, there's this little W shape. This is Cassiopeia. If you want to choose one of these stars. And Cassiopeia, for me, like the bottom star right there is another like surfer Hindusian symbol above the ridgeway out there to that one. That'll be good enough for the east. So that's 3 directions, east, west, and directly overhead, which leaves us with 2 more directions, north and south. And this is where things start to get interesting. Because as the Earth turns us around, it's kind of turning us upside down. So you can imagine this, if I locked this laser on Vega here, on this star directly above us, for a full 12 hours, I'd need to point below our feet. Because 12 hours from now, we'll spin halfway around the planet. We'll be hanging upside down from where we are right now. Do you really see this in the northern sky? So we have lots of iconic constellations in the northern sky. We all already pointed out the Big Dipper. It's probably the most iconic constellation of the northern hemisphere in the northern sky. We call it the Big Dipper. 3 stars for the handle, 4 stars for the vessel. In London, in the UK, they call it the plow or the wagon. Many cultures in the rest of Europe agreed with many cultures of the Native Americans in seeing this as the Great Bear, Ursa Major. That's where we get its more scientific name. Neither of those cultures are monoliths, of course. Some of them saw it as different things, but many of them saw it as a Great Bear, which I think is really cool that they were on the same page there.
The Big Dipper is the same as Ursa.
Ursa Major, yeah.
Same thing.
Yep, yeah, same one. In the American South, it was called the drinking gourd by the slaves in the American South. I've seen across Asia they focus in on there being 7 bright stars here. So again, 3 for the handle, 4 for the vessel, making 7 bright stars here. So in Korea and China, they just call it the 7. In India, it's called Shaptashi, which means the 7 sages. Each one of these stars represents a different sage in Hinduism. So yeah, all these different cultures were looking at this same constellation. They drew different pictures on it based on their culture, but they were all looking at this exact same pattern of stars in the sky. These constellations, these patterns of stars in the sky, have been the same throughout recorded human history. So you can be sure that they'll be the same throughout your lifetime. However, tonight we're going to watch all of these stars move. All these stars are going to move in unison, staying in their same constellation, staying in the same pattern they're in. All these stars are going to move across the sky, except for this one very special exception. That's the North Star, the pole star, Polaris. So let's measure that one up to make sure it's not moving at all. And for me, it's about 2 thumbs up fits between the horizon and the North Star. And for the North Star, I want you to imagine you're on a boat and imagine where the horizon for the boat would be, because that would be like your true horizon. So not the top of the tree or the top of the hill or the top of the hotel there. Imagine you're on the boat, and I'd say, again, it's about 2 thumbs up. It's maybe just under the top of the hotel that's on the other side of the trees there from my perspective. That's because this measurement, holding these hands out, holding these different weird hand symbols to the sky, we're actually taking a somewhat scientific measurement. What we're measuring is called degrees of inclination, basically how many degrees above the horizon that star is, which for the North Star is a very special measurement, because the North Star is always going to be as many degrees above the northern horizon as you are north. So here in Winter Park, we're about at the 40th parallel. We're just under 40 degrees north. So that means if instead of a laser pointer, this was an arm of a protractor with its base right on the horizon, we'd measure this angle to be almost exactly 40 degrees. So that makes that star very handy to be able to find, because then if you find it, you can drop the line straight latitude. So I hear a lot of fancy ways of finding the North Star. My personal favorite is using the Big Dipper. I mentioned that the Big Dipper was called the drinking gourd by the slaves in the American South. There's actually an old slave song that was used in the Underground Railroad called Follow the Drinking Gourd that would teach escaped slaves using the Big Dipper, how to find this North Star. And all you do to do this is notice that these two stars of the Big Dipper always point at that North Star. Something else that's really handy is these two stars of the Big Dipper are almost exactly 5 degrees apart. So for me, without a glove on my hand, I can fit 3 fingers between those two stars. So now I know 3 fingers is 5 degrees. I can make a rough estimate of how many degrees north or south I am. Again, you want to start from the horizon as if you were on a boat. If you wanted to get super accurate about it, you could hang a plumb bob, and what's 90 degrees from your plumb bob is your true horizon. But think if we're just measuring with hand symbols like this, just imagining you're on a boat is fine enough, and stack up those fingers going 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 to get a rough estimate of how many degrees north or south you are. So yeah, that's your navigation. There any questions with that?
No, I had always just heard that the North Star was like the brightest in the sky, but like obviously that's not right now.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. I did work at another observatory in Australia, and the guy who ran that observatory was like a real proper scientist, and he had a story of him coming and visiting America and going to an observatory, and they got him by saying which one's the North Star, and he just picked out like a 7th magnitude star and was like, oh, probably that one, and they were like, no, and showed him that one, and he was just flabbergasted that it was so dim since it was such a big deal. I tried looking up what the origin of that is. There's some theories. One, it is the brightest star in the Little Dipper. So the Little Dipper, you have this star, and then there's 2 fainter stars here, which I'm hoping will come out more once this cloud leaves. And 2 fainter stars here with these 2 brighter stars here, now I'm seeing that. Making the 3 stars for the handle and 4 stars of the vessel of the Little Dipper. So the North Star is the brightest in the Little Dipper. So it could be that the scout leader just read, oh, brightest on the Little Dipper, and then when he showed it to people, it was saying the brightest star, and mixed that up. There's also a theory, the story of the Star of Bethlehem that the wise men followed. So there's a movement. I don't usually really cover it. It's not that big of a deal for what I try to get into. But over thousands of years, it's called precession. So the Earth kind of spins like a top, and so the North Star can kind of change with that. So I think it's 2,700 years, Vega here becomes the North Star, which Vega isn't the brightest star either. Vega is maybe the 5th brightest star. But yeah, thousands of years ago, Vega was the North Star, and so they think that a translation of a story where Vega was the North Star is what became the story of the Star of Bethlehem, and it's kind of a rumor that's just persisted. But no, it's just the star.
So is
Yeah.
the North Star the very end of the Little Dipper's?
Yep, yeah, it corresponds to the star. So you have 1, 2, 3 stars for the handle, then 2 stars here with these 2 stars making the vessel. They say the dippers pour into each other, so you can imagine the Little Dipper pouring into the Big Dipper right now. Then you can imagine 12 hours from now, if you're standing on your head looking at the same picture, Big Dipper will be pouring back into the Little Dipper. But yeah, everybody have your navigation down? You'll all be able to find your way home tonight?
Yeah, hopefully.
Perfect. So how this works, how this star stays still while all these other stars move, and why this star stays still at such a special point that tells us both what north is and our latitude, is just because this star is at a very special point in the sky called the North Celestial Pole. The North Celestial Pole is just a fancy way of saying the bit of sky directly above the North Pole. So you can imagine if we followed this North Star tonight, all the way north, all the way through Wyoming, all the way through Montana, all the way through Canada until we reached the point that that North Star was directly above our head, we would know we're at the North Pole because the North Pole is defined as 90 degrees north. So if that North Star is making a 90-degree angle with every horizon, we know we're at the North Pole. And if that North Star is making a 90-degree angle with every horizon, it's no longer pointing us a direction north. There's no such thing as north at the North Pole. Everything's south. And because every direction south at the North Pole, that means there also is no such thing as east or west. So instead of going 800 miles per hour to the east like we're doing to get around the Earth right here, at the North Pole, you'd just be doing one of these once every 24 hours. Which means you'd see all these stars go do a big circle around your head once every 24 hours, except for the North Star, which would stay still directly above your head. All the other stars would do a one big circle around your head. Even stars that were level with the horizon would stay level with the horizon and do a big circle around your head. That sounds amazing. I definitely want to check it out myself, but I'll warn you before you start seeing if Santa has an Airbnb or anything like that, then a night at the North Pole lasts 6 months, so you'd be there for quite some time. You'd also be there at peak season, so Mr. and Mrs. Claus might put you to work. But we can save you the trip here in Winter Park by just seeing this in the northern sky, how this one star is going to stay still while all these other stars are going to do, of course it gets a little stage fright right now. This one star is going to stay still as all these other stars are going to do a big sweeping arc around it. So we can watch this by, we know these two stars, the Big Dipper, was pointing at that North Star. So just take note of the angle that these two stars are pointing at that North Star with. Because as the night goes on, this angle is going to get way more, vertical. Exactly. This is kind of like, if you imagine like spokes on a bike wheel, this is like a spoke of the bike wheel that's pointed right at the center hub of the bike wheel. And that spoke will always point to the center hub of the bike wheel, even as the wheel travels around it.
So is there a lot of like stars and constellations that you can only see in the northern versus southern hemisphere then?
Yep, yeah. So, just like there is a North Celestial Pole, there is a South Celestial Pole, but because this is the axis of rotation of our planet, this is a straight line going from that North Star through the core of our planet and out the South Pole, means that if this North Star is 40 degrees above our northern horizon, that South Celestial Pole has to be 40 degrees below our southern horizon. Which means if you try to follow any of these stars in the southern sky, you're going to get lost because they're going to appear to do a big sweeping arc as if they're going around a point 40 degrees below our horizon. And so, just like there's 40 degrees, that North Star is 40 degrees above our northern horizon. You can watch, as you said even, that this Big Dipper is going to become more vertical. It's going to scoot just under the North Star. The Big Dipper never sets for us here in Winter Park. The Big Dipper gets really low to the horizon, skirts just under that North Star, and then it comes back up and rises again on the other side. Any stars that are within 40 degrees of the North Star, they become what the fancy way of saying it is circumpolar. They never set for us. Yep, you always are able to see. But just like there's 40 degrees worth of stars that you're always able to see, there's 40 degrees worth of stars below our horizon that never rise. And so, we're all familiar with the Big Dipper, of course. It's the most iconic constellation in the northern sky. If you actually see the flag of Alaska, it's just the Big Dipper pointed at the North Star because that's a lot higher in the sky. Alaska's a lot further north, so they have a lot more circumpolar stars. But unless you've been to the southern hemisphere, you've probably never seen the Southern Cross. I pointed out the Northern Cross earlier. The Southern Cross, its southern counterpart, is like the Big Dipper is to us. It's the most iconic constellation of the southern sky. Even if you've never been to the southern hemisphere, you've definitely seen it. It's on Australia's flag. It's on New Zealand's flag. If you look close enough, it's on Brazil's flag. It's on a bunch of flags for different governments in the southern hemisphere, because it's the most iconic part of the southern sky. But we never see it; it never gets to rise. The biggest extreme you can imagine is if you're at the North Pole, all your stars become circumpolar, because then your circumpolar stars are 90 degrees, and at the South Pole is the other 90 degrees. So if you theoretically, if you had an observatory at both the North and the South Pole, you could cover all of the stars with those observatories. And then at the equator would be zero, so the North Star would be way low on your horizon, and that South Celestial Pole would be way low, like right on your southern horizon. And so all of the stars, you no longer have any circumpolar stars. All the stars will change every 12 hours and every 6 months. So yeah, if we want to choose some of the stars, unfortunately this seems to be where all the clouds are coming in, but some of the stars in the southern sky, I do see this star hanging out here. Oh, and there's its counterpart up there. These two stars are my two favorite stars to introduce, just because their names are so much fun to say. This is Zubin al-Janubi and Zubin al-Shamali. Zubin al-Janubi and Zubin al-Shamali are the bounce beams in Libra. Just up from then, this loose grouping of stars here is Scorpio. That's actually one of the claws of the scorpion. It's the head of the scorpion. I don't see the heart of the scorpion there, just tucked back behind Mary Jane's peak, right there. Let's see. Right in here, this is one star that's just peeking out from the cloud of Sagittarius. So if you want to take a measurement in the southern sky, you can see Sagittarius right now is in between these two trees. Scorpio here is in between these trees. And Zubin al-Janubi and Zubin al-Shamali, Libra there, is just to the left of the peak of Winter Park there. So yeah, you can watch all these stars are going to do a big sweeping arc as if they're going around a point 40 degrees below our horizon, so all these constellations will shift. The Sagittarius will go more into the trees where Scorpio is now. Scorpio's really low, so it'll probably duck behind the mountains. Same with Zubin al-Janubi and Zubin al-Shamali. Probably lose those fairly quick too. But yeah, everybody have your homework assignment down? Or your, not homework, your assignment for tonight down? You're ready to watch the Earth turn? So I have one other movement I like to touch on. That's the Earth going around the sun. This one, it's a lot easier. I get through it a lot quicker. I think it's a lot easier to figure out, especially after we go through the Earth turning. And that's just because it works out perfectly. It takes us 365 days to do one full circle around the sun. And there's 360 degrees in a circle. So that means every day we shift just about 1 degree around the sun. Which means every day you'll see all these stars in the sky shift in the sky just 1 degree across the sky. Which 1 degree is really small, you're never going to really notice that. But 1 degree a day over the course of a week ends up being 7 degrees. And I mentioned those two stars in the Big Dipper were 5 degrees apart. They'll always be 5 degrees apart throughout your lifetime, just like they've been 5 degrees apart throughout recorded human history. However, over the course of a week, you'll see them staying the same amount they are apart, shift 7 degrees even further than they are apart across the sky, so down below the North Star. All these hard to notice, but 4 minutes a day over the course of a week ends up being almost half an hour, 28 minutes. And you definitely notice a half-hour shift. I try to shoot to be at the half-hour mark of my tour when I say this, so I can tell you this is the sky I'm going to start the tour with next week. I sort of introduce a week's time because I feel like if I'm assigning homework like this, it's a reasonable amount of time to remember to check back in on the sky with. But where it really clicks for me is if you can remember to check back in a month from now. So if each week holds about a half hour and there's about 4 weeks in a month, it makes sense that each month is going to shift about 2 hours. Which that really clicks with me, just something about there being 12 months in a year and 2 sets of 12 hours in a day or 24 hours in a day. It makes sense that each month is going to hold 2 hours because 12 goes into 24 twice, like that. But why it really clicks for me is I run a 2-hour-long program out here. So that means the sky we started with tonight is what I finished on a month ago. The sky we finish with tonight is what I'm going to start the tour with a month from now.
Wow.
3 months is a quarter of the way around the sun. That's a 90-degree shift. So this brings back that summer triangle really well. So I said 3 months ago, it would be shifted 90 degrees. It would be right on our horizon rising. We would know we're at the start of summer. We're at the summer triangle just starting to rise. 3 months from now, it's going to shift 90 degrees. It's going to be starting to set. We're going to be even through fall. We're going to be well into, or just starting winter 3 months from now. And the summer triangle will be a seasonal indicator for that as it disappears and winter sets in. 6 months is a 180-degree shift, so that means anything that's currently on the eastern horizon, like the bottom part of the summer triangle, or now we're getting a couple more stars coming in. This is a star that's in Pegasus, just below the cloud there. All these stars will be just as much as they are above the eastern horizon, summer triangle included, will be as much as it is above the eastern horizon, below the western horizon. So the summer triangle will be pretty much directly below our feet 12 months from now, because 12 months from now, we're going to be on the opposite side of the sun. It's going to be the furthest away from this point in space there will ever be is 6 months from now when we're on the opposite side of the sun. All of these stars that are currently above the horizon will be below the horizon 6 months from now. All these stars except for, as I was saying, anything that's as many degrees away from the North Star as our line of latitude. So the Big Dipper, like I said, it never sets, it just kind of squeaks below the horizon here, or below the North Star here, and comes back up the other side. I'm glad I pointed out Cassiopeia earlier because it got a little clouded out here. You remember that W shape I pointed out earlier, Cassiopeia? Her story goes into this fairly well. So Cassiopeia's story is she was the vainest lady ever ruling to Greece. She was always walking around with a selfie stick causing all kinds of drama. It's usually depicted as a hand mirror, but I like to update things a little bit. She got into the predicament she's in now by starting drama with Poseidon. She said she was prettier than Poseidon's daughters. Word traveled really quick in ancient Greece, even without the internet. Somebody tipped off Poseidon that she was talking about his daughters. Somebody told her that Poseidon knew and he was looking for her. So she cooks up a plan. She has a daughter of her own, Andromeda, which is actually maybe just rising right now, really low on the horizon out here. These grouping of stars really low on the horizon there. She takes Andromeda down to the beach and chains her to a chair and hopes that when Poseidon comes for his vengeance, he'll see poor daughter Andromeda there and be like, yeah, that looks like her. Poor daughter Andromeda gets all the punishment, and Mama Cassiopeia gets to walk away scot-free. Luckily, Poseidon saw this all go down and was like, wow, Mother of the Year right here, we really need to teach this lady a lesson. So he thought it was a fitting punishment to chain her to a chair in the sky. So you can make that W a chair in a lot of ways. I like saying like that one leg of the W is the back of the chair. I'll actually just point it out later when it's out. It makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? It doesn't look like that comfy of a chair. It's like kind of looks like a poorly built IKEA chair, but that's not her full punishment. Her punishment is she's chained to this chair, and this chair is doomed to do a big circle around every 24 hours and once every year. So we can all laugh at Cassiopeia. Right now, she's doing that W shape. 3 months from now, she'll shift 90 degrees with respect to the North Star. She'll be more of a little zigzag shape. 6 months from now, she'll do a 180-degree shift. Instead of being a W low on our horizon, she'll be an M shape way high on our horizon. 9 months is another 90-degree shift. She'll be a backward zigzag out over here. And then 1 year from now, she'll be back exactly where she is. We'll be back exactly where we are in our journey around the sun. So yeah, everybody have your homework done, ready to watch the Earth go around the sun? Yeah.
So that star we started with,
Yep.
see how it's kind of flickering?
Yeah.
Much?
So it's a general rule that stars twinkle and planets don't. So the twinkling is mostly caused by atmospheric interference. So if you imagine the atmosphere above us as a blanket above us, when you look straight up, you're looking through the thinnest cross-section of the blanket, just like the thickness of the blanket. But when you look out towards the horizon, you're looking all the way through the length of the blanket. So stars like Vega, here directly above our head, it's twinkling, but not nearly as much as stars that are lower on the horizon, like Arcturus there. That's just because you're looking at it through a much thinner column of atmosphere. That's why when you watch the sunset over the... What's that?
What? Because like it seems like you're like something you see like red or blue. Like
Yep, yeah. So it's kind of like the Pink Floyd album cover where the prism breaks the light into the different colors. What you're seeing is our atmosphere acting as that prism, so it bends some colors of the light more than it bends others. And another thing, I'll show you this when you get to the telescopes. When you look at planets, they're little like dots in the telescope. You can actually see their little disk to it. It has a size in the telescope. You look at these stars, it's like they're just little specks. They still look like just the dot. Like when you saw it in the telescope, it's just that. It was just that little dot. And so, if we shrunk down the sun to be the size of a grapefruit, the Earth would be about the size of a grain of sand. So the sun, if the Earth was 1 millimeter across, just the size of a grain of sand, the sun's about 112 times the Earth diameter, so it would be 112 millimeters, about the size of a grapefruit. Jupiter, the biggest planet, is at about 12 Earth's widths across, so it would be the size of a fairly decent sized grape. Saturn would be about 9 Earth widths across, so it would be a lot smaller grape. If the sun was, let's say, in the flower bed back there, Earth would be maybe about where the first telescope is at the 10-yard line. It would be at this scale about 10 yards or 10 meters away from it. Jupiter would be at the 50-yard line or 50 meters away from it. So you can imagine if you're looking at a fairly decent-sized grape about 40 yards away, you could see, especially if like the backdrop's all black, that grape is reflecting a lot of light and it's showing up white, you would see a little bit of the width of that grape. If we wanted to go to the next closest star at this scale, next closest star would be 2,000 miles away. So 2,000 miles away from Winter Park here would be a beach in Belize. So you can imagine if we had a grapefruit here, then just absolutely nothing until you reach a beach in Belize. That's the distance between our sun and its next closest neighbor. And so if you imagine we had a big telescope, even if we had the Hubble telescope here, aimed right at Belize, it would be really hard to see that grapefruit. You wouldn't be able to see the skin on that grapefruit. And this, again, having the Hubble telescope at this scale would mean that you have a telescope bigger than much of the solar system. So you'd have a massive, even with like a massive telescope, you can't really zoom in onto the surface of any of these stars. They're only just specks of light because they are huge darkness around it, you'd see the light from that nuclear explosion, but you don't really see the surface of the other stars. And so because that, when the atmosphere bends it, it can bend the light from like beyond where that dot actually is. And so that's what makes stars more prone to twinkle than planets. There are a couple exceptions, like I said, bright stars directly above your head, so like Vega isn't twinkling as much. It's because the atmosphere isn't bending the light from Vega as much. And then really dim planets, really low on the horizon, Mercury's notorious for this. Mercury usually twinkles because Mercury's always really low on the horizon when you see it, and it's one of the way more dim planets. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah. What?
Oh, just that was a really great way to explain it. I didn't. Stars don't actually twinkle. It's just the atmosphere that makes
Yep.
it look that way.
Yeah. That's also why, I mean, I don't recommend this, never stare at the sun, but when you watch the sun set over the ocean, sometimes it feels like you can look at it. It's the Earth's dirty atmosphere, you're looking through it through a huge column of Earth's atmosphere. And that's what's making it that deep red. It's still doing damage to your eye. It's actually able to dim it down enough where it does damage to your eye, but it doesn't trigger the
Close your eyes sensation.
yeah. So it is really dangerous to look at it, but that's why like when you see a sunset and stuff like that, you can look at it through a camera lens or whatever, or not like through the camera lens, but have your phone screen, look at your phone screen instead of looking at it directly. But yeah.
What is the closest star to ours?
Proxima Centauri. So no, that's actually one that's in the southern hemisphere. It's never above. Right now, I'd say this one is the closest one to us. So I said that it would be 2,000 miles away. I don't really have a sense for distances like that. The closest one that I can think of in miles is the moon. Is about 200,000 miles away, and that I kind of have a frame of reference just because I only drive old cars. Usually 200,000 miles is like, if you have a really good old car, it'll make it to the moon and back, but most cars are just making it to the moon. 200,000 miles is kind of when I feel like when a car becomes fairly old, but many cars with about that or a little bit more making their way back to the moon. If we go out that far, that's where light years comes into play. So I think of it rather than saying its distance, which for a light year you'd have to take the speed of light, 300,000 kilometers per second, and then multiply it by all the seconds in a year, and that's what distance a light year is. But instead I like to think of it rather than like a distance as in miles, it's like travel time. So if instead of telescopes, these were light speed rocket ships, this would be how long it would take us to get to any of these places. So the moon would be about a second and a half away. The sun is about 8 minutes away. Pluto, the very like edge of our solar system, would be about 4 hours away. That's like a solid weekend trip to make it to Pluto in a light speed rocket ship in 4 hours. But if you wanted to go to that closest star to us, Proxima Centauri, would take you 4 years and 7 months traveling at the speed of light. Like I said, everything in our sky right now is a lot further than that. The closest one in our sky right now is Vega, the one directly above our head here. Vega is about 25 light years away. So the light you're seeing from Vega just got the ability to run a car. Getting kicked off of Obamacare, I think. Is that 25 or is that 26? Yeah.
It's almost there.
Yeah.
You mean off your parents?
Yeah.
Or yeah, getting kicked onto Obamacare. Yeah. Yep. So
You
yeah.
said you can see planets, so is that the star's light shining off of the planet that we can see it? Or how, because
Yep,
like our
yeah.
planet doesn't really
So-
give off light, right?
Yep. from the sun. The moon is actually like super. If you ever see the moon rocks and stuff they bring back, it's like gray or black. It's really dark. It doesn't reflect nearly that much light. I had somebody that did film. I don't quite know what this means. I kind of have I suspect I know what it means, but he said that that a full moon night actually meters the same as if you have pavement, like the sun being reflected off of pavement in a shot. I think like the amount of light that it puts into your scene, so the camera settings that you need to capture at a full moon light is similar to what's reflecting off of blacktop. But yeah, basically, I don't really know. That's kind of just what I've guessed he meant. I really should have asked more questions because when he said that, I was like, whoa, that's cool, and it just kind of washed over me. I was like, wait, what is that? But yeah, it like reflects somewhere between 3 to 12% of the light that hits it. If you filled our entire sky up with full moons, it wouldn't even reach the amount of light the sun puts out. And it wouldn't reach it by like, it would be like 100th of what the light puts out. It's just, our eyes are really well adapted to being on this planet that on a full moon night, your eyes are able to see really well. I reckon it's time to get to telescopes, unless there's any other questions.
I'm sure I'll have more eventually.
So this telescope is a computerized telescope. There's lots of pros and cons with working with a computer, as I'm sure everybody's well aware. If you made it this far without a job that involves a computer, I'm really jealous. I'd like to learn more about that job. Big benefit in the computerized telescope is it knows thousands of things, way more than I could ever hope to learn to point a telescope at, but it's a lot slower than I am. So it'll take this a good amount of time to run its program here. Yeah, where it's at here. You'll see. We'll take that thing in about 6 minutes or so. And this telescope too. A couple targets in 6 minutes. This is back onto Arcturus. I know most everyone already saw it, but
Yep, yeah, the one, it is twinkling more than, now it's slower. I know you didn't get to see it at the start of the tour if you want to.
check it out. It's in this telescope. I do have this step stool if you ever need to grab onto anything, grab onto this, grab onto a friend. Don't grab the telescope. They look big and sturdy, but they're not. If you grab that telescope, it'll fall, you'll fall, tears will fall. Just be gentle. Another thing I like to introduce to is these binoculars. So, people often ask me what telescope they should start out with, and are surprised when I say just start with a pair of binoculars. You'll be blown away by how much you can see in a pair of binoculars. I think everyone's fairly tall here, so I'm going to raise it up a little bit for us, so you don't have to hunch over as much. These binoculars are a little bit overkill compared to what I recommend people to start off with. But yeah, I wanted to let anybody who feels inspired to feel free to use these binoculars and try to. This is a good, because they are mounted on this tripod. It's a good like stepping stone to getting to use a telescope. So the big difference with from these binoculars to ones you might have at home is they are on this tripod. It stabilizes it a lot, but just to move it, just use this handle here. I ask you, don't touch anything, any of the other telescopes, and don't touch these binoculars either. Just only touch this handle. If you grab it by the binoculars here, you see I can't move it. If you try to force it to move, it's gonna break it. So just grab it by the handle here and push it wherever you want it to go. I I recommend to start off with just point at places where you don't see any stars. You'll be amazed that almost anywhere that you point those binoculars, you're going to see some stars, unless, of course, you're unlucky to hit a cloud.
Because like all the lights and everything else, your eyes are taken up, and when you're looking through that, it's only like a small portion.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So this, your pupils right now should be fairly dilated as it's as we've let our night vision come in. This ups the size of your pupils to be the size to be this big. So it lets in a lot more light. It's funneling the amount of light from that into your eye. So that's how all these telescopes are working. Is it just my analogy for a telescope is it's kind of like a bucket in a rainstorm. The bigger your bucket, the more rain you pour. The rain in this analogy is photons, the tiniest little particles of light. So things like this star that we started off with, we saw it while the sun was even out. This star is a really bright star. You can look at this star in a pair of binoculars or in a giant telescope, and you're going to get enough light to be able to see it. When it comes to the dimmer stuff that we'll look at here shortly, the galaxies and the nebulas and stuff, they're much more like a pitter-pattering storm. They give off very few photons, so you need a much bigger bucket light to basically be able to take a drink from it. See? If that makes sense. So this telescope is a 6-inch telescope. That's how we introduced the telescopes as sizes in inches. This is a 6-inch. That's a 12-inch telescope. It sounds like that one's twice as good, but it's actually 4 times as good. 4 times the collective area. This one's a different type of telescope, so it's a lot crisper of an image. This is just getting to aperture at first, it's about the size of your primary lens. So that one can collect a lot more light. This one I just moved to one of the stars in the Big Dipper. If you want to be the first to look through it and tell everybody what you see, the star has a fairly obvious secret once you look at it, either in a pair of binoculars or in a telescope here. Yeah?
I think so.
There's like.
Don't give it away because it's kind of an eye exam. Yep, exactly. You see, rather than just one star, you can see it's 2 stars. It's the big reveal. So one of the stars of the 7 of the Big Dipper, is secretly 2 stars. This is used as an eye exam in the Roman army. If you can tell which of the 7 stars in the Big Dipper is actually 2 stars, you could have passed the Roman eye test, and you could have been an archer in the Roman military. So before I give it away, I want everybody to get a chance to try to see which of these 7 stars it is. You can see it fairly easily. So once you see it, once it's pointed out to you, you can't really unsee it. So I try to keep it at low key. Yeah. Until everybody's gotten a chance to try it, because it is an eye exam you can only perform once in your life. I mentioned that the 7 stars of the Big Dipper were called Shaptashi, the 7 sages of Hinduism. This one actually represents Arundhati, which is the saint of marriage. So during a Hindu wedding ceremony, the newlyweds will be shown this star and told a romantic story about how these were 2 lovers that couldn't shine without each other and put their light together to make an even brighter star to shine out in the heavens. Yeah, it's an integral part of the Hindu wedding ceremony. Might seem weird that this one star is 2 stars, but it's actually more weird that our star, the sun, doesn't have a companion star. It's about 60 to 70% of stars have companion